my child. The thing you have been calling a wall is closer to a door, and the question standing in front of it is one. My word has already begun to answer. Stay with that sentence a moment. Do not rush past it. Let it settle right now, before your mind tries to file it somewhere safe and small. You have spent a long time treating your doubt like a locked gate at the edge of your faith, a place you were not allowed to walk any further. I want to show you something else. What looks like the end of the road is a doorway, and I am not pacing on the far side of it deciding whether to let you in. I see you. Not the version you arrange for other people, the one underneath. You were handed a faith, somewhere back there, that taught you a real believer never wavers. That the moment a question rose in your throat, you were supposed to swallow it before anyone noticed, before I noticed. So you learned to swallow. Year after year you swallowed. And the questions did not dissolve the way you were promised they would. They went deeper. They built a small room inside you with the door pulled shut, and you walked past that room for years, pretending it was empty. Now you are worn out. Not because your faith is collapsing, because you have been holding two doors closed at once. The one you wanted to walk through with me, and the one your honesty has been knocking on for longer than you can remember. What exhausts you is not unbelief. It is the labor of pretending. And the voice inside you has been afraid to hear what I am about to settle in plain words. I have not been waiting for you to stop doubting before I come close. I've been on the other side of the doubt, near the door, waiting for you to come through. Take a slow breath and hold it for one count. Then let it go, all the way down. Feel that loosening in your shoulders when you stop bracing. That loosening is your honesty asking to be led into the room. Do not silence it. Bring it. Bring the questions you have rehearsed at 3 a.m, the ones you do not even let yourself finish forming because you are afraid of where they end. Bring them all. There's no question your hands can carry that I am too fragile to hold. Here is something no one taught you. The opposite of faith is not doubt. The opposite of faith is performance, a smile worn like armor in the very rooms where you most needed to come apart. Hands lifted in worship while the mind kept asking, do you even hear me? Doubt is not the absence of trust. Often it is trust that has reached the edge of what it could carry alone, and now stands at the door waiting for me to meet it there. Every faithful person you have ever read about reached that edge. They did not stop belonging to me when they reached it. Many of them came to belong to me more honestly because of it. I am not afraid of your why. Nothing you carry frightens me. Not the prayer that ends in no instead of amen. Not the silence you fell into after the answer did not come the way you needed it to. You read that silence as distance. You decided it meant I had stepped back. I had not stepped back. I was sitting with you in it, waiting for you to turn your head and find me already there. The quiet was not my absence. It was my refusal to fill the space with an answer too small for what you were going through. You have been reading the silence wrong. You called it rejection. It was patience. You called it indifference. It was attention. You called it my verdict on your unbelief. It was my unwillingness to hand you a slogan when the deeper thing was still being formed in you. Some answers cannot come fast without coming hollow. The world is full of fast answers. I am not their source. I am the source of the kind of answer that takes its time, because it is being shaped to fit a whole life and not a single afternoon. I know exactly when the doubt got loud. It was not the day you stopped believing, because you never quite stopped. It was the day something you had counted on did not hold. The phone call you were not ready for. The result that came back worse than the worst version you had let yourself imagine. The marriage you fought to keep, slipping anyway. The prayer you prayed with your whole chest, met with what looked like nothing. After that, the questions you had always tucked away politely refused to stay tucked. They followed you to work. They sat across from you at dinner while you smiled and passed the bread. They woke you at 4 and would not let you sleep again. And in the middle of all that, the worst thought of all crept in. The one you have never said out loud. What if he is there and just does not care about me the way he cares about the others? I am telling you now, into that exact thought, that it is not true, and that I have been close to you in the very hours you were most sure of my distance. There is a thing you do that you think no one sees. You open the notes on your phone, late, when the house is finally quiet, and you start to type the real prayer, the one with the anger in it, and the confusion in it, and the bargaining in it. You get a few lines down, and then you delete it. You delete it because somewhere you decided that the unedited version of you was not allowed in the room with me. So you closed the app and prayed the safe version, the acceptable version, the one that would not embarrass either of us. My child, I would rather have read the one you deleted. The deleted prayer was the truest thing you said all day. The door you have been afraid to open is the door to the prayer you keep erasing. The picture of me you carry was painted for you by people long before today. Some of them meant well and still drew me wrong. They handed you a God who stands at the door with his arms folded, tapping his foot, keeping score of every wobble in your belief. That is not the one who is actually here. The real one is not folding his arms. The real one has his hand on the door, his weight already leaning into it, eager for the moment you reach for the handle from your side. Now let your jaw come unclenched. You have been gripping it the way you grip everything you're trying to control. Let it soften. You do not have to hold your face together to be heard, and let your eyes lift, just slightly, off the screen and toward the nearest doorway in the room you are sitting in. Any door will do. The one to the hall, the one to the next room. Look at the handle on it for a breath. That ordinary door is closer to the truth than the wall you have built in your mind. A door is made to be passed through, not stood in front of forever. The one between you and me has hinges, not bars. I built it that way on purpose. Let your gaze come back now, softer than it left. Let me name the lie that has done the most damage, because once you see it plainly, it loses most of its power. You have believed that my nearness is a reward for your certainty, that on the days your faith is strong, I draw close, and on the days it shakes, I withdraw and wait for you to pull yourself together. So you have spent years trying to manufacture enough belief to earn a visit. My child, that has the whole thing backward. I do not come because you are sure. I come because you are mine. The certainty was never the ticket through the door. There is no ticket. There is only the handle and your hand, and a father already leaning on the other side. I want to remind you of someone you have been told to be ashamed of. There was a man named Thomas. He had spent years close to me, and still, when the others told him the impossible had happened, he could not make himself say yes to it. He wanted to see. He wanted to put his hand where the wound had been. And I did not shut the door on him. I did not call him faithless and walk away. I came into the very room he was hiding in, and I let him touch. I did not require him to believe before I appeared. I appeared so that he could believe. That story was never meant to be a warning against doubt. It is a record of how I answer it. People turned Thomas into a cautionary tale, because they did not understand what happened in that room. I did not scold him. I met him. That has always been the pattern. If these words are reaching something honest in you, leave the word open in the comments. Just that one word, as a small yes to yourself. And while you are there, you will find 7 letters waiting in the pinned comment above. 1 for each of the next 7 mornings. Take them. I want to read you a line that was written down a very long time ago, and not for scholars. It was written for tired people who had every reason to think the door had closed on them for good. There was a small, struggling group of believers in a city called Philadelphia, weak in the eyes of everyone around them. Sure, they had too little strength left to matter. They were the kind of people who would have understood exactly the room you have been living in. And to them, the door people, the worn out and the overlooked, this is what was set down. Revelation, chapter 3, verse 8. Behold, I have set before you an open door, which no one is able to shut. I know that you have but little strength, and yet you have kept my word. Read it slowly. Take it apart with me. Behold. Look up the way you look up when someone calls your name gently. I have set before you an open door, not a door you have to pry open by performing enough belief. A door already set in place, already open, which no one is able to shut. Not your worst doubt, not the people who shamed your questions, not even you, on your most faithless night, are strong enough to slam shut what I have opened. And then, the part you most need to hear. I know that you have but little strength. He did not wait for them to be strong. He named their weakness out loud, plainly, and opened the door anyway. This is the answer to the question I set in front of you when these words began. You have been bracing for a wall. You have been treating your doubt as the place your access to me ends. But it was never a wall. It was the doorway, and the door was open the whole time, held open by a strength that is not yours. Because my Son walked the whole length of death and back so that no one could ever shut you out again. The handle was always on your side. Every time you brought an honest question to me, instead of running from it, you were already turning it. You thought you were walking away. You were walking in. There is more than one kind of doubt, and I will not pretend they are the same. There is the doubt that folds its arms and refuses to be reached. Yours is the other kind. The doubt that aches because it still wants, that asks because it still hopes the answer is yes. That keeps coming back, even after you tried to leave, because something in you would not let the conversation end. That is not the doubt of someone who has stopped believing. That is the doubt of someone still in the room, still listening, still half hoping I am about to speak. The very fact that you are sitting with these words is the proof of it. Look back for a moment at the rooms you were sure you would not walk out of. The diagnosis, the empty side of the bed. The morning after the thing you built came apart in your hands. You stood at the edge of those rooms asking the same question you are asking now, certain there was nothing on the other side. And here you are, not unmarked, but here, still breathing, still able to feel something stir when truth comes near. That is not because your faith was flawless. It is because my faithfulness was. You wavered, and I did not leave. The ground I set under you held even on the days you were sure it would give. The doors that did finally open in those seasons did not open because you finally believed hard enough. They opened because I was on the other side of them the whole time, working a key you could not see. I want you to hear something about the doors that closed, the ones you prayed would open and they stayed shut. Some of them I closed, not because I stopped caring, because what waited on the other side would have cost you more than you could yet imagine. From where you stand, a closed door looks like rejection. From where I stand, some of them were rescue. There were rooms you ached to walk into that I had to keep you out of. There were people you fought to hold that I had to let walk away. I'm telling you now what I could not tell you then, because you were not ready to hear it then. The closing was sometimes the kindest thing I did for you. The day you understand which closed doors were mercy and which were only sorrow, your whole relationship with prayer will change. You will stop measuring my answers by whether they matched your request and start noticing whether they delivered the deeper thing your request was reaching for. You have been afraid that the people near you would learn how hard the wrestling has been, afraid they would think less of you, tell you to pray harder, quote a verse at you that never once touched where you actually live. Some of them already did. You remember the smallness of having real pain answered with a phrase someone could have read off a magnet. So you stopped bringing the real thing. You brought an acceptable version, a polished one, the kind that does not make anyone uncomfortable. I never wanted the polished version. The unpolished one is what I came for. The cracks they criticized in you are exactly the places light has been getting in. A polished surface keeps me out. A cracked one lets me through. Now I want you to picture the door of your doubt as a real door, not a figure of speech in your head. A real door with a real handle, a real hallway beyond it. You have stood in front of it for years, afraid that if you opened it you would find I was not there, that the room would be empty, that all your asking would lead to nothing but more silence. That fear is what kept the door shut. Let me tell you what is actually on the other side. I am there, with a chair already pulled out for you, with the conversation already underway, with the question you came to ask already half answered, because I have been on the other end of it the entire time. The room is not empty. It is the most occupied room in your whole life, and it has been waiting for you. When you walk through, the question does not vanish all at once. That is not how this works. What happens is that the question loses its weight. It is still there, but it sits on a different surface. Not on your chest, not across your shoulders. On the table between us, where we can both look at it together. The same words, an entirely different weight. A question shared with me is nothing like a question carried alone in the dark. There are questions you have been afraid to admit you stopped asking. Dreams that went quiet in you, because the ache of wanting them and not receiving them grew sharper than the wanting itself. So you stopped praying for the child. You stopped praying for the restored relationship. You stopped praying for the work that would have meant something. Because hope, after a while, started to feel like a setup for another fall. I see those silenced prayers too, and I want to tell you the truth about them. They did not die. You stopped speaking to them. They went quiet. But quiet is not the same as dead. A seed in winter ground looks finished. It is not finished. It is waiting for a warmth it cannot schedule. Some of what is still ahead of you is the quiet return of things you decided were over, not because you finally believed enough to deserve them, but because I never stopped tending the ground while you were not looking. Hear the difference carefully, because despair will try to twist this. I am not telling you to brace for a particular outcome by a particular date. I am not telling you the exact thing you grieved will arrive in the exact shape you grieved it. I am telling you something underneath all of that, something that does not depend on circumstances cooperating. The God who tends the quiet ground is near. The conversation you thought had ended is still open. The door you stood in front of was never the end of the road. Whatever does or does not change in your circumstances, that door does not close. Let me be careful here, where I know it has cost you most. Some of you carry a question about why something happened, why the prayer you prayed in your darkest hour seemed to go unheard, why the person you pleaded for was not spared, why the door you knocked on for years stayed shut. I am not going to insult what you lived through with a tidy explanation. The pain was real. The disappointment was real. The way you stopped talking to me afterward was real, and I saw every silent day of it. What I will tell you is that I was there, not in the abstract, in the hospital corridor, in the kitchen at 3 a.m. when you sat with your face in your hands, in the car pulled onto the side of the road where you finally let yourself break. I was there, and I have not forgotten a single moment. The reason you have not yet heard the whole answer is not that no answer exists. It is that the answer is still being lived, and from inside the page you cannot see the shape of the book. But I can. You have been afraid, too, that your doubt could undo what I have spoken over your life. Hear me clearly, because this is where despair has lied to you the longest. What I have promised does not become void because you wept. It does not retract because you asked. My word is not held up by your performance of belief. It is held up by me. You were never strong enough to bring down what I built, and that is a mercy you have been refusing to receive. So receive it now. Open your hands. The thing you were afraid you had ruined was never breakable to begin with. And notice what I am not promising you. I am not handing you a tidy certainty you can store on a shelf and stop wrestling. I am not handing you a date by which every confusion clears. I am not promising that the circumstance that broke your heart reverses itself by some afternoon you have already circled. What I am setting before you, through that open door, is steadier than any of that, and impossible to lose. Presence. Pardon. A peace that does not depend on having the explanation, the companionship of the one who knows the answer and stays beside you while you wait for it. You thought what you needed was the answer. What you actually needed was the one who keeps the answer and will not leave the room. That is what I am giving you. That is what I have been giving you all along. You are only now learning to recognize it. You were also taught by someone that doubt costs you, that if your faith wavered, the promise was rescinded, the gift quietly withdrawn, the door swung shut behind your back while you were not looking. Hear me, because this is not how I am. I am not a God who pulls the gift the moment your performance slips. I did not abandon the disciples after every one of them failed me on the worst night any of them ever lived. I came back into the room they were hiding in, with the door locked from the inside, and I stood among them, and the first word out of my mouth was, peace. They had done nothing to earn it. They had run. They had denied even knowing me. And still, peace, before a single one of them had composed himself. That is who I am. That is who I have always been. The ones who taught you to be afraid of my disappointment were describing a God I am not. You can set that God down. He was never here. So when the shame rises again, the shame about your honest questions, lay it down where you find it. It did not come from me. It came from people who needed your certainty to prop up their own, who could not sit with their own questions, and so made yours unwelcome. They taught you that asking was failing. They told you the quiet stretches in your prayer life were your fault. None of that was mine. I never asked you to be sure. I asked you to be mine. There is a vast distance between those two things, and you have spent years on the wrong side of it. So here is something small you can carry into the rest of your week. When the question rises again, and it will, do not shove it back into the closed room. Set it down where I can see it, in one plain sentence, said low enough that only I can hear. I do not have to know to be loved. I do not have to be sure to be yours. You may not feel anything different the first time you say it. You may feel like you are talking to the ceiling. But somewhere around the 30th time, you will notice the sentence has stopped feeling like failure and started feeling like prayer. That is the door swinging. You do not have to force it. You only have to stop holding it shut. And the next time you reach for your phone late at night to type the real prayer and then move to delete it, try leaving it this once. Do not edit the anger out. Do not soften the confusion into something more presentable. Let the unfinished, unpolished version stand and read it back slowly, knowing I am reading it with you. You will be surprised how quickly the thing you were ashamed to say turns into the most honest worship you have offered in years. The room I most want to meet you in is not the tidy one. It is the one with the deleted prayers in it. You will know the door has been crossed by something small, not loud, not a thunderclap, a quiet softening in the place where the question used to sit so heavy. The question may still come, but it will not crush you anymore. You will be able to hold it without it holding you. You will say to me, plainly, I do not understand this, and the saying of it will feel like prayer instead of failure. That is the sign. That is how you will know. Before you read the last of this, sit with me one moment longer. Let the rush in your chest settle. The whole of your faith was never resting on your ability to be certain. It was resting on me, and I have not moved. The faith you are walking back into is not the faith you started with. It is wider, quieter, less afraid of the dark. It can sit with a mystery without panicking. It can hold two true things at once without coming apart. You mistook the widening for falling. You were not falling. You were being made roomy enough to hold what comes next. Shallow faith cannot hold what I am preparing to fill it with. So I let you ask. I let you wrestle. I let you walk the long way through the wilderness of why. Not because your struggle pleased me, but because I refused to give you a faith so thin it would shatter at the first real weight. A faith that only works when life is gentle would have collapsed the day life stopped being gentle. I was not building you that kind. I was building you the kind that holds. And the door of your doubt, the one you have guarded for years, the one you were sure opened onto an empty room, it has never been locked. The handle has always been on your side. I have already walked through it toward you, with my hands open, with nothing in them to punish you, and everything in them to give. You are not behind. You are not the one believer in the room who got it wrong. You are exactly where I have been forming you to be, and from here, with your honest questions finally allowed in the room, the next part begins. Not from a certainty you finally earned, from an honesty you finally let yourself bring. Lift your face, just a little. The way someone lifts their face when they realize the one they were afraid of is the one who has been gently smiling at them the whole time. The door is open. No one is strong enough to shut it. Walk in. Amen. If this devotional reached the place in you that has been afraid to bring its honest questions into the open, leave the word open in the comments, just for yourself. You will find 7 letters waiting in the pinned comment below, one for each of the next 7 mornings, and they are yours to keep. Pass this to someone who has been carrying a quiet question alone in a closed room, and stay close so the next word can find its way to you. You were never meant to stand at that door by yourself.